So this is a question that plagues both believers and non-believers alike. Why is there evil in this world? Why does it exist? And it's something that hits very deep to everybody that's involved and anyone that kind of thinks very deep on these types of topics. And well, hopefully I can give some insight today as to why that happens. So basically, there's two types of evils, and I think I'm going to more focus on the second one. But the first type of evil is the evil that humans ourselves cause. And I think that's going to be a little bit easier to explain as to why that happens. So obviously, stay tuned. I'll explain it later. But the second evil is the one that really hits very deep, and it's the one that causes a lot of discourse, raises a lot of questions. This idea of things that humans can't control, a thing like natural disasters, disease that plagues people, children getting killed in ways that humans couldn't control. And so basically, atheists use this idea of evil in this world to justify the fact that there's no God and the fact that, yeah, it's just a world of chaos and craziness and there's no control in here at all. And even Christians have a hard time grappling with this issue. And, hopefully I'm here today to give you a little bit of insight. So, this episode kind of is inspired from a moment that happened with me when I was in Europe, where it was me and this guy who's a hardcore atheist. And, I love the guy. I appreciate him. He's a very nice guy. But we disagreed on this issue. And he brought this point up, and I don't think I was able to defend that idea in a Christ-like way, and I don't think I represented him in the best way possible. When he basically brought up, well, yeah, God isn't all-knowing and all-powerful because of all of the evil that exists in this world. And he specifically mentions the evil of cancer plaguing people and ruining their lives and cutting their lives short. So why? Why does that happen? I didn't really answer that question well enough when I was actually in the conversation with him. But it definitely has sat with me for a bit, and it's a little bit interesting. So that's why I'm here today to hopefully maybe answer some of these things that are bubbling up in your head as to why this exists, why evil exists, and why God doesn't stop it. So first and foremost, to answer this question, it's impossible to know for certain because as humans, we don't understand God's will. We don't understand his plan. We don't understand just his reasoning behind all of it because he's purposefully limited our knowledge and understanding. He's created us in his image, but limited our understanding so that these types of issues, it's not so easily explainable. And it's probably easier for our human minds to come up with the reasoning that, yeah, there is no God because it is all just chaos and there's no direction when it comes to evil and when it comes to these things that humans can't control. So I just want to preface it with that I'm going to give you a couple of ideas as to potentially why and things that maybe make sense. But I can't know for certain, and no one can really know for certain. You only really know when you leave this earth and you find out what happens in the afterlife. So yeah, that's going to be just a little side note, that I don't really know. I don't know the answers, and no one really knows the answers. Humans aren't expected to know the answers because of that exact reason that God limits our scope of understanding. So here are just a couple of ideas. So the first one is the fact that the earth isn't his kingdom. The earth is not God's kingdom. But he limits his power to give us a free will. So the earth isn't God's kingdom. Heaven is God's kingdom. And so then you may ask, why did he create earth then? Well, he created earth because he loves humans so much, and even that's really not explained as to why he loves humans so much, because we sin and we fail and we fall all the time. But he loves humans so much that he actually gives us the choice. He gives us the choice to live a life with him, with God, or to live a life without God. And he's not going to directly punish us, on this planet at least, for choosing to live a life without God. So the earth isn't his kingdom. God takes a step back. That is to say, he gives humans the free will and the power to make the choice. And so then, of course, that opens the door to evil because it allows humans to make the choice to do something horrible and to do something just absolutely tragic. And that leads to a lot of the humanitarian issues that exist in this world today. But I think that one can be explainable by the fact that this is what the Bible teaches. All humans are evil. All humans have innate evil and desires and vices that we can't control. But the people that are really bad, people that are murderers, the people that cause genocides, that go to war, and the people that do sexual crimes. I was going to use the word, but I'm not going to use the word because this is a family-friendly channel. But the people that do sexual crimes and deal drugs and all this stuff, the difference between them and us isn't so great. The difference between them and people that are actually just normal people that are just going about their days and trying to be a good person is not that big of a difference. It's just that they acted on their evil desires in the worst way possible. And we've been suppressing our evil desires to try and be better people. That's the only difference. But internally, humans all have innate evils inside of us. And that's why evil comes out. So that's why God allows it to happen. He doesn't really allow it to happen, but he kind of just takes a step back and allows us to make the decision to be a good person or a bad person, to live a life with God and live a life without God. So because of that, it just opens the door. But I think that's explainable in that way. That all humans have evil, but some act on them and some don't. And that's what kind of makes the difference between good and evil. And another thing is, if evil happens one way, it opens the door for more. So that is to say that, yes, humans cause a lot of evils. That's only one side of the evil nature that happens in this world. You have the humanitarian evil and the circumstantial evil. The things that humans can control, a lot of times, it becomes something horrible. And that's just the way that humans are. In the Bible, the story of the Bible is very simple. It's like humans mess stuff up all the time. And it was always humans and people's faults for all of the tragedies and difficult things that happen in the Bible. No less, the crucifixion of Jesus was humans in their greed saying, oh, he's going to be a threat to our structure, so let's go and kill the guy. Little did they know, right? But so human evils are explainable in that way, but something else, why would a child get cancer and die at a young age? Or why would someone in their mid-30s get paralyzed and not be able to move for his entire rest of his life? So situations like that. Why does a natural disaster come and kill thousands of people in a big city, for example? Just a couple of examples to think, yeah, these are things that happen in this world, and you have to accept that. But if evil happens one way, it opens the door to more. Which means if there's evil here, you can't just say, oh, okay, let's ignore this. If God's limited his power to give humans a free will, he's also taken a step back and allowed the world to do what the world does. And it gives the devil an opportunity to come in and do stuff like that and enter our hearts and make us think, oh, if all these evil things happen, all these tragedies happen, that there is no God. The devil wants us to think that. So he uses things like big tragedies and big storms and things that humans don't necessarily have control over to convince us, oh, well, why doesn't God stop that from happening? Why doesn't God stop that from happening? And well, while I can't say for certain, I would say it's because if there's one evil, you can't really have nothing. You can't really have, oh, humans do evil, but nothing else happens. I feel like it just doesn't really align. It doesn't really make sense, right? If all the evil on this earth were just human created, perhaps it would be a little bit more manageable. So it's the idea that there's two types of evil, but without one, there really isn't the other. It's either that the entire world is good, and we know that that's not the case. It's only good in heaven, but the entire heaven is good. Heaven doesn't have natural disasters as far as I'm concerned anyway, and stuff like that. So the entire heaven is good, but just like the entire heaven is good, the entire earth is evil. So whether it be human or whether it be circumstantial, it's evil nonetheless, and it's tragedy nonetheless as to what happens on this earth. And the final reason is kind of tied in together. Evil exists so that good has the chance to come out on top. And I think this is the best explanation as to why there is evil in this world and that these tragedies do exist. First and foremost, I'd like to say that if a child dies, and it says in the Bible that that the children, that Jesus says you must be like these children, you must have the childlike love for God. If a child dies, he goes to heaven no matter what. Jesus basically insinuated that in the way he talks about the children and the way he glorifies the children in the Bible. So that's a little bit of a soothing and a peaceful thing, that if something terrible happens to a child, regardless of whether or not he believes, people talk about the Gaza situation where many Muslim children get killed. It gives us the hope, and it gives us the peace to know that yes, Jesus did say that regardless of where the child's come from, if they're a child, God protects them in an even greater way, and they'll go to heaven regardless. But still, why if a child has cancer and has to deal with the situation, why would that have to happen? And well, it's to say that it allows the good to come out on top. I'll tell you a little story. So I saw something online one time. I was just kind of scrolling through Instagram, the normal crap. This was a little while ago, but I remember it because it was so impactful. There was a kid, and him and I think it was his dad were sitting on the couch, and the kid had cancer. He had some horrible disease, and he didn't have a long time to live. And he must have been maybe 8 years old or something like that. He was a young kid, and when dad was asking him questions, the kid was basically happy. He was happy. He glorified God in his horrible moment. He was saying how God has a plan for him, and God's given him this life, and God's giving him tests, and God's testing him to help him grow. And he knew this at a young age, and he was, instead of being sorrowful or angry or bitter that he didn't have a long time to live, and he wasn't like 4 years old, he was probably old enough to understand that. Instead of being angry or sad or sorrowful, he actually was happy and glad, and he rejoiced in the fact that he at least had this amount of life that he's lived. And that's such a beautiful thing to me, because that's exactly, it makes sense then. It all kind of comes together as to say, this evil thing happened to him, but he used this evil to create something truly amazing. And I guess that's probably why the evil happens, right? If a natural disaster hits a big city and a lot of people die, it brings the rest of the city together so that they can kind of come together and rebuild themselves up even stronger. So that is absolutely a factor at play. That if evil happens, it allows the good to be even greater, to be highlighted even better. And it kind of wakes people up a little bit. People themselves do less evil when they realize these circumstances have kind of destroyed their lives. People themselves wake up and strive to do better in an even greater way. And perhaps that is the reason why God takes a step back on both types of evil in this world, so that humans can prove ourselves. Humans can go in and make bad situations good, and good situations even better. So even the worst of circumstances, and I've given a couple of examples of some terrible tragedies in this world, humans do have the choice. And at the end of the day, that's what God does. He gives us the choice to pursue good or evil, the choice to choose him or not choose him. And well, if any evil thing or any terrible tragedy happens to you, or a traumatic event happens to you, God makes you have the choice. And you have the choice to say, okay, I'm going to let this destroy me, and I'm going to wallow away in my depression and poor me. Or you have the choice to actually grow from it, be stronger, and pursue an even more a courageous and fulfilling life and doing even more good for others so that whatever happened to you can happen to less people. And I think allowing evil in this world actually opens the door to even more just genuine good people and people that just truly save the world with their actions and uh, their missions, rather. So I think that's probably the best way to describe it. That there's two types of evils. The human evils, it's a little bit more explainable. The fact that all humans have this evil in them. But the circumstantial evils, that's the one that me and my friend in Europe had a bit of an argument over, because it's really hard to explain it. And again, I'll reiterate the point that I don't know for certain if this is the case. I think that that third point, the idea that evil opens the door for even more good, is probably the best way to explain why there's so much evil in this world. Right? Say someone bullies you, someone calls you names, or someone beats you up, right? Jesus himself talks about this. Turn the other cheek. Odds are, if someone hurts you or insults you or beats you up, and instead of fighting back, instead of insulting him back, you actually just be meek and you be humble and you don't fight back, and instead you respond with love, odds are he's going to change his life too. He's going to realize right in that moment just what he did was bad, and that he has a lot to grow, and that you're actually like the better person than whoever he was. So again, it's just time and time again where the evil can be made good in the greatest way. So I think that's the best way to explain it. But again, it's hard to explain, and I don't really know for certain, because God, of course, limits us in our understanding on purpose. On purpose. That one's on purpose. The evils, I don't really know, but for sure, God limits our understanding on purpose. We've seen it even scientifically. You can prove that humans only use a certain percent of their brain. And that's why, a couple episodes, I did a longer episode on the idea of faith and the belief in things unseen and things you can't necessarily prove. So I think God did that on purpose, and it kind of ties into this idea of evil, that, yeah, we're not really going to understand everything. But if we come to the conclusion that there is a God, and we believe in God, and we put our faith in him, not only will our lives be better, we'll seek to make other people's lives better as well. So I want to remind you that God's power is beyond all human comprehension. Whether you believe, or whether you believe in Jesus, or whether you're an agnostic, you think there is a God but you're not sure, or if you're atheist, you don't believe in God straight up, just remember that I personally believe there's a God. And I think, again, it's the same thing. You look around you in your life, you look at all the things that happen and all the great gifts that you've been given in your life, and in my opinion, you kind of have to come to the conclusion that there is a God affecting things. So when you come to that conclusion, you realize that, yeah, no, God's power is so great that there's a lot of things that humans miss, a lot of things that we can't really fully understand. And that's okay. That's exactly why we have the free will to make the choices that we can make on our own so that our lives can be fulfilling. If God didn't give us the opportunity to have a free will and make the choice between evil and good, our lives would all be meaningless, because everything would be linear and there would be no chance, no luck involved, and we'd know everything that happened and that would happen in our lives. And unfortunately, a lot of people still live like that. But once you know there's a God and you know that he gives you the opportunity to do greater things, it only increases the chance and increases your ability to go out and do those things, to go out and achieve something truly amazing. Sorry. And the last point I want to make before I'll end off this episode is to say, don't blame God for the evil in this world. A lot of people blame God. A lot of people use it to say there isn't a God. But don't blame God for the evil in this world. Instead, take a look at yourself and strive to do better for yourself. Strive to do better and strive to look for good in your life and be a good person in your life. And it will have an effect on the people around you. And if every single one of the people in this world look towards that, the world will just genuinely become a better place. And, although there are lots of things that we can't really control as humans, you have to use every single bad situation that you're in to find the meaning, to find the good, and to come out even stronger and even greater, not just in your life, but in your faith as well. So if you made it this far, thank you. That is all I'll say. If you're an atheist, again, a couple episodes ago, we talked about faith. I encourage you to watch that episode because if you don't really believe in God, hopefully that episode can give you some ideas as to not only what specifically faith is, but why it can be very beneficial to you in your life to have it and put a belief in something greater than yourself. So I encourage you to go watch it. Obviously, you're not forced to do anything. And that's basically the idea of God too. You're not forced to do anything. You're not forced to choose him. You're not forced to choose him. You're not forced to pursue good. But, I think innately we all kind of want to, because God gives us the hope in something greater, the hope in the afterlife, the hope that this life isn't the last life that we have. And the pursuit of good is obviously just a more genuinely fun and meaningful and purposeful experience than pursuing evil things. Evil things will make you feel good in the moment, probably, but in the long run, it'll completely destroy you. But the good will stay strong forever, and in your life, you'll just become an even better person with it. So, why does evil exist in this world? Truthfully, I do not know. I cannot say for certain. But what I do know is that God has a plan for each and every one of us, and he encourages us with, regardless of whatever situation you're in, to come out, be stronger, be better, and pursue the greatest good that there is.